Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you to Oncology Classroom evening session. As you all know that in this month of December, we are having different interesting lectures by renowned faculties of the country and with a theme of Curies of India. All these faculties have significantly contributed to radiation oncology in this country in their own unique way. And essentially, it's not exclusive, it's inclusive in nature. As part of that, today evening, we are having Professor Oshini Budrukar with us. Dr. Budrukar is professor in the Department of Radiation Oncology at Tata Memorial Hospital, Mumbai, who is well known not only in this country, but worldwide for her phenomenal work on breast cancer and head and neck cancer, particularly in the field of brachytherapy. And Dr. Budrukar is now closely associated with the head and neck DMG at Tata Memorial Hospital. And today she is going to deliver her lecture on reducing dysphagia and aspiration using modern radiation technology for head and neck cancers. Thank you, ma'am, for accepting this invitation. And I know that you do not require any formal introduction. So without wasting any further time, may I now please request you to take over the session and start your presentation. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for this introduction, and thank you very much for inviting me to this series of Curies of India. And I've heard some great lectures during this series. I hope I'll be able to do justice to the series and to the topic also. So our topic for today is about dysphagia and aspiration in head neck cancer and how we can reduce that with the help of modern radiotherapy. So my slides are not going down. Okay. So we know that current CTRT is standard of care for head neck cancer, and post there are some issues. One of the major issues is dysphagia and aspiration, which is many a times overlooked. But if you look at it carefully, almost 50% of the patients, they develop dysphagia and Dodul, are you able to hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So patients, they develop dysphagia, and 1/3 of the dysphagic patients actually develop aspiration pneumonia, and mortality rates are also quite high, ranging from 20 to 60%. So there have been various studies which have evaluated the swallowing dysfunction post radiotherapy, and one of them was from Icebrook et al., who have evaluated patients of oropharyngeal and nasopharyngeal primary treated with conformal techniques, and they found that the aspiration rate can be as high as 44%, while the stricture rate is also around 8%. Similarly, Leventalk et al. Studied in oropharyngeal cancer, and they also found that the swallowing dysfunction is seen in around 20 to 30% of the patients, and they have used patient-reported outcome for that study. And we also have two series from India, and from a study from Anand et al. It showed that the grade 2 or more dysphagia is observed in around 12.3% patient. And in our hospital, study was done by Dr. J.P. Agarwal, where we studied 30 patients who were treated with conformal techniques. And we observed that even before starting radiation, there is aspiration in around 20%, which is increased to around 30% after the treatment. One of the largest data of dysphagia and aspiration is from SEER database, wherein we have data of around more than 16,000 patients who are treated during the period of 2002 to 2011. And what they observed was that the dysphagia prevalence was as high as 45%, and the stricture was as high as 10%. Pneumonia was also seen in around more than 30% of the patient, and these were quite important findings. And so they looked at what are the causes of dysphagia and aspiration, and they found that if you look at the technique of treatment, then chemoradiation is one of the important modalities of treatment which result in highest dysphagia. So these are the side effects, which are dysphagia, stricture, pneumonia, and aspiration. And these are the treatment modalities like surgery, radiotherapy, combination treatment, and chemoradiation. And they found that chemoradiation results in highest dysphagia, strictures, as well as pneumonia and aspiration. If you look at the site-wise data of oral cavity, larynx, nasopharynx, and oropharynx, oropharynx results in more of dysphagia and strictures, while pneumonia and aspiration are more common in larynx and nasopharyngeal primaries. They also looked at non-head neck cancer patient, and they found that these prevalence was much higher in head neck cancer patient as compared to that of control. So we need to look at what the mechanism of swallowing is. And if we see, the mechanism of swallowing is actually very complex mechanism, which involves voluntary and involuntary muscle. Almost 30 pairs of muscles are used each time we swallow, and 6 cranial nerves are used. And typically, the food goes in four phases, which is the oral preparatory phase, oral phase, laryngeal phase, and esophageal phase. But what happens with radiotherapy is that there are different changes that happen inside the body, and typically there is a decrease in the posterior inversion of the base of tongue towards pharyngeal wall. There is decrease in the elevation of the hyoid and larynx that happens after radiation. There is a decrease in the inversion of epiglottis, and closure of the epiglottis and larynx is also incomplete post-radiotherapy, which results in aspiration. In addition to that, there is decreased peristalsis, poor synchronization of the muscle, and delayed opening of the esophageal sphincter, which again results in higher rates of aspiration. So the radiation-induced dysphagia can be actually acute or late. Acute is mainly due to damage of the mucosa and the soft tissues. It is related to the mucositis, edemas of the soft tissues, pain and viscous secretions, and xerostomia, while late the dysphagia is due to fibrosis, atrophy of the muscle, loss of sensations, lymphedema, and decreased contractility. So should we evaluate all patients for dysphagia? Ideally, if the facilities are available, maybe we should evaluate all patients of head and neck cancer for dysphagia before radiotherapy, but it may not be possible in all scenarios. So typically, patients who have following symptoms should be considered for dysphagia evaluation, and these include inability to control food, liquid, and saliva in the oral cavity, whenever there is pocketing of food in the cheek, whenever there is excessive chewing, drooling, or coughing, choking, and throat clearing before, during, and after swallowing are some of the indicators that patient is not able to swallow properly. Similarly, abnormal voice quality after swallowing, which includes wet or gurgly voice, buildup or congestion after the meal, when patient himself or herself complains that there is difficulty in swallowing, and there is food which is sticking in the throat, nasal regurgitation, and weight loss. These are some of the indicators which suggest that there is some problem with the swallowing mechanism. The evaluation can be done in various ways, and these include clinician-reported outcomes such as RTOG toxicity grading and common toxicity criteria, while patient-reported outcomes are commonly used, and these include EORTC head neck quality of life questionnaire, MD Anderson dysphagia inventory, swallowing performance scale, and functional outcome swallow. The objective evaluation are 100 ml water swallow test, and 100 ml water swallow test is actually one of the most simple and easy technique which can be used by even clinicians in day-to-day practice in absence of swallowing specialist. in which we give 100 ml of water to the patient and ask him or her to swallow the fluid. If the patient is able to swallow normally, then most likely patient does not require detailed swallowing evaluation. While if you see drooling or coughing or change in voice, or patient himself says that he's unable to swallow, then these are some of the indicators that patient will require detailed swallowing evaluation. So other methods include modified barium swallow and fiber optic endoscopic evaluation of swallowing. What is modified barium swallow? And these are this is more for students, and this actually captures all four phases of swallowing as mentioned before, and this is done in three feeds which mimics solid, semi-solid, and liquid food. So for solid, typically we give thick barium, and the the proportion of barium suspension to barium powder is 1:1. Medium, which is similar to the semi-solid, is barium suspension alone, while thin barium is barium suspension to water at the proportion of 1:2. And this is how the modified barium swallow looks, where you get fluoroscopic image of the patient, and then you will have a live live picture wherein patient is swallowing, and you will be able to see how the food is traversing uh, uh, and how the swallowing is exactly happening. So typically the fluoroscopic evaluation is done at 30 frames per second. So and this is evaluated in terms of what is called as penetration aspiration scale. So penetration is when the bolus which is given enters the laryngeal vestibule, but it goes up to the level of vocal cord, but does not pass below the level of vocal cord. Aspiration is when the material passes below the level of vocal cord and enters into the subglottic region. And pharyngeal residue is when the bolus remains either in the vallecula or pyriform fossa. And this is important because as it remains in the vallecula or pyriform, later on when epiglottis opens up, then it can trickle down and results in aspiration. So the pharyngeal residue is also important finding which can have impact on aspiration. So these are the examples, and here you can see bolus which is being passed into the food pipe, and while you can see that this has gone into the laryngeal lumen, but it has not gone beyond the level of vocal cord. So this is called as penetration. And here you can see that this is the thyroid cartilage, and this is the trachea, and here you can see that the barium has gone into the trachea, and this is called as aspiration. So there is another method for evaluation, and this is called as fiber optic endoscopic evaluation of swallowing. And in this, we can evaluate base of tongue, larynx, and hypopharynx. And the oral phase cannot be evaluated because the scope is passed through the nose, and then we get the picture of the base of the tongue, epiglottis, and the laryngeal inlet. Similar to the video fluoroscopy, even here we can evaluate based on, we do evaluate for solid, semi-solid, and liquid. And generally, as we directly see over here, we give colored food so that we can identify whether there is penetration or aspiration. And we can actually see the food, like we can detect the residue in this, and we can also see the penetration and aspiration directly happening. So this is how we can evaluate it in fees. And also there are some manuals to improve the swallowing. This can be told to patient, and patient can do it while the scope is on, and we can evaluate that. So let us look at a case capsule, and this is a 64 years old male who who was a chronic bidi smoker. He presented with change in voice, and Hopkins and Dale-scopic examination showed a growth in the right vocal cord, which was extending to anterior commissure with right cord fix. CT scan also confirmed the similar finding, and he was diagnosed as CA vocal cord T3N0M0. He was treated with IMRT to a dose of 70 gray in 35 fractions and with concurrent cisplatin. So these are his fluoroscopic images at 1 year and 2 year, and let us see how they are. So this is a 1 year swallow, and you can see that the food is going very nicely without any obstruction anywhere, and neither there is any trickling into the larynx. So when the patient came for 2 year follow-up, the situation was quite different. And here you can see that the barium has trickled down into the air space and it has gone into the trachea. So this was very frank aspiration, and therefore patient was advised laryngectomy for dysfunctional larynx. However, patient did not agree, and then he came with very severe aspiration pneumonia and required ICU admission for a very long time. So our aim as radiation oncologist is to avoid these kind of scenario and give a good functional swallow to patients who are going for organ and function preservation in head neck cancer. So what are the methods to reduce the swallowing dysfunction? This can be done by prophylactic swallowing exercises, which are taught to patient before starting radiotherapy. They continue to do so during radiation and after radiation. And also techniques of the radiotherapy, which can avoid radiation to this dysphagia and aspiration related structure, which is called as DAS optimized radiotherapy. I cannot go into details of swallowing therapy because of the lack of time, but there are various methods and various technique exercises which can be taught to patient, and these can improve their swallow, and we can avoid aspiration with the use of these swallowing techniques. So coming to the dysphagia aspiration related structure, these were first defined by Eisbruch et al. And they defined it way back in 2004. And this was a part of a study wherein they studied 26 patients who underwent concurrent chemoradiotherapy. These patients were studied with video fluoroscopy, endoscopy, and CT scans were done pre-radiotherapy and post-radiotherapy. They found whatever abnormalities on video's fluoroscopy, they correlated it with the post-RT CT scan. And they studied the change in the muscle before radiotherapy and after radiotherapy, and with that they identified set of muscles which are responsible for dysphagia and aspiration, and these were defined as dysphagia aspiration related structures. So which are these structures? These structures are superior constrictor, middle constrictor, inferior constrictor, criphopharyngeus muscle, cervical esophagus, base of the tongue, supraglottic larynx, and glottic larynx. These are the muscles that are defined as dysphagia aspiration related structures. So there are guidelines which have been given, and most commonly used guidelines are by Christian and et al., which are given in Radiotherapy Oncology Green Journal of 2011, and they have given detailed guidelines regarding delineation of these structures, which include all the borders such as cranial, caudal, anterior, posterior, lateral, and medial. So these are the structures which have been drawn, and you can see over here, this is the superior constrictor muscle, this is the middle constrictor muscle. This includes inferior constrictor as well as cricopharyngeal muscle. This is the esophageal inlet muscle, cervical esophagus, base of the tongue, supraglottic larynx, and glottic larynx. So let us take an example. I cannot go into each of the structure because this is beyond the scope, and beyond we won't be able to complete the class in time. So I will give you only one example of superior constrictor muscle. So it starts at the lower edge of the pterygoid hamulus, that which is the cranial extent. Anteriorly and medially there is the pharyngeal lumen. Posteriorly there are prevertebral muscles, and laterally there is a medial pterygoid muscle, while inferiorly there is a lower, it extends up to lower edge of C2. So this is how we draw muscle for each of the patient, and similarly other structures can be drawn, and details of this can be seen from this Green Journal paper which I mentioned below, and you can go and see that they have described all the structures such as supraglottic larynx, and other uh, other DARS structures. So there have been various dosimetric studies which have evaluated the effect on radiotherapy to these DAS muscles, and one of the largest series is of 259 patients where they studied using URTC quality of life, and they observed that whenever the doses were more than 55 gray for glottic supraglottic larynx, it resulted in more than grade 2 dysphagia and aspiration, while for constrictor muscle, whenever the dose was more than 60 gray, it resulted in more than grade 2 dysphagia aspiration. In another study, they found that when the larynx received dose of more than 48 gray, there was risk of aspiration and stricture, and this was studied using video fluoroscopy. While for constrictor, when the doses was more than 54 gray, there was a risk of aspiration and stricture. And similarly, there is other study by Caudle et al. Where they evaluated the various constrictor doses and found that when the mean dose is more than 51 gray, then there is a risk of aspiration stricture, which requires dilatation. So there is a phase 2 data of 73 patients where they have evaluated stage 3 and stage 4 oropharyngeal cancer treated with concurrent chemoradiotherapy and DARS optimized RT. And they found that there are excellent local control rates and survival with this kind of technique. And there was not much worsening in the QL that they observe. Typically, when there is more than 10-point worsening, then it is considered as significant, and there was only marginal increase in the worsening as compared to when DARS optimized RT is not given. And similarly, when the fluoroscopic scores were compared, there was only marginal change in the scores with the use of DARS optimized radiotherapy. So they concluded that DARS optimized radiotherapy can result in excellent local control as well as can improve the quality of life in patients receiving concurrent chemoradiotherapy. So there is another study wherein they evaluated 38 patients, and these patients received DARS optimized RT and were evaluated by FEES as well as video fluoroscopy. And they found that there was a worsening of scores with FEES and for solids as well as semi-solids at 6 months and only solids for 12 months. And there was worsening of penetration aspiration score both at 6 and 12 months. And they found that the aspiration rates were much less, 3 to 7%, and 10 to 14% was 14% for solids, and therefore they concluded that with DARS optimized RT, you can reduce the dysphagia and aspiration rates. One of the important study in this for this DARS is the UK DARS trial. This is a randomized trial which has been done for patients who have received concurrent chemoradiotherapy for stage 1, for T1 to T4 and N0 to N3 squamous cell carcinoma. Patients can receive NACT as a part of this trial. Majority of the patients have received concurrent chemoradiotherapy. Before radiotherapy, they are evaluated using various questionnaires such as MD Anderson dysphagia inventory, University of Washington QL, 100 ml water swallow test, and performance score. And then patients are randomized to standard IMRT versus DARS IMRT. And again, evaluations are done at 3, 6, 12, and 24 months. They recently so how did they do planning? In planning, what they did was that they considered only constrictor muscles and did not define the entire DARS structures. For oropharyngeal primary, they gave put the constraint so as to receive less than 50 gray to the superior and middle constrictor muscle and less than 20 gray to inferior constrictor muscle. While for hypopharyngeal primary, they gave constraints such that it can receive less than 50 gray to the inferior constrictor muscle and less than 40 gray to superior constrictor muscle. Priority was given to spinal cord, brainstem, CTV 65, followed by constrictors and then CTV54. So here you can see that this is the volume which is coming as CTV54, and they have underdosed their CTV to spare the DAR structure. This is how they have planned their patients for DARS optimized IMRT. And the dose that they have given is 65 in 30 and 54 in 30. They recently presented their results in ASCO 2020, and what they have seen is that they were with DARS optimized radiotherapy, the doses to inferior constrictor muscle can be spared really well, and same is true about superior constrictor muscle. And they observed that the MD Anderson dysphagia scores were much better with DARS optimized RT, and hence they concluded that DARS optimized RT reduces doses to DARS and improves swallowing function. So we also did a study in TMH, and patients were histologically proven head neck squamous cell carcinoma, oropharyngeal, hypopharyngeal, and laryngeal primaries who are receiving concurrent CTRT were considered for the study. Patients were treated with IGRT technique, and the delineation of the target volume was as per the standard guidelines. Pre-treatment evaluation was done using modified barium swallow and URTC quality of life, and evaluations were done at 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and 24 months. So how we did is that we contoured the individual DAR structure, as you can see over here, and then all the DAR structures were fused together to form a structure which is called as DARS. Then we fuse the high risk PTV and the low risk PTV to form PTV total. The DAR structures were subtracted from this PTV total to form DARS minus PTV. So another structure was formed which was defined as DARS minus PTV. So the aim was to give dose of less than 50 gray to the DARS. While attempt was made to spare the DAR structures, many a time it was not possible, and the dose of less than 50 gray to DARS minus PTV was also accepted. The priority in our series was spinal cord first, followed by brainstem, followed by PTV 7035, followed by PTV 5635, and then DAR structures followed by parotid, and then rest of the organs. The constraint that we gave were also different, and which were given to DARS minus PTV, and these were V20 less than 100%, V30 less than 70%, V40 less than 50%, and V50 less than 20%. So what we observed was that oropharynx and larynx were common sites. Majority of the patients were T2, T3 tumor. Majority of the patients had N0 status. High risk PTV was, the volume was 221 cc. The total DARS volume was 65 cc, and DARS minus PTV volume was 40 cc. So the mean DARS dose what we could achieve with this was 48 gray, and means DARS minus PTV dose which we could achieve in this was 34 gray. So these are various structures, DARS structures, and these are the doses that that we have achieved in our series. So these are the case example of, this is one of the supraglottic primary, where you can see that we are able to achieve the superior constrictor base of tongue and cervical esophagus, while supraglottic and larynx of course cannot be spared. And this is a case of a tonsillar primary, where you can see that we cannot spare base of tongue and superior constrictor, while we were able to spare the supraglottic larynx and inferior and middle constrictor with this particular technique. So this is just to show that unlike UK DAR study, we did not compromise on the coverage of our target, and both the high risk and low risk PTV were covered adequately, and only the DARs which are outside the PTV were spared. So what we observed was that the constrictor, base of tongue and superior constrictor form the major bulk of the DARS, and they account for 58%. Hence, mean dose in oropharyngeal primaries was higher, that is 54 gray, and in laryngeal primary it was lesser, that is 44 gray. So DARS mean dose of less than 50 could be achieved in 68% of the patients. So In oropharynx, we could not achieve less than 50 much in only 33%, while in laryngopharyngeal primaries, 87% we could achieve less than 50 gray dose. And this was also associated with the volume of PTV. When the volume of PTV was less than 250 cc, then we were able to give DAS doses of less than 50 gray, while when it was more than 50, we were not able to do so. So these are the differences between the DARS UK study and DARS TMS study. While theirs is a phase 2, phase 3 study, ours is only a phase 2 small data. But nevertheless, they have underdosed the PTV low risk, while we have not underdosed any of the PTV in our series. And we strongly believe that PTV should not be compromised while sparing the DARS structure. First is to cover the target properly, and then comes the sparing of other structures. And hence, we have not spared any of the DARS inside the PTV, and only those outside the PTV have been spared in our series. So this is a case capsule of a 59-year-old male who has a change in voice again since 4 months. And on Hopkins and DL-scopy evaluation, we could see a growth in the left vocal cord anterior commissure with fixed cord. And CT scan also confirmed the same findings, while VFS, this is the VFS of this patient, and you can see this, that there is the bolus is going very nicely without any penetration, and this is a functional swallow. So this patient was taken for organ preservation approach and was treated with concurrent CTRT, and this is the IMRT plan. And post CTRT 3 months, PET showed no evidence of the disease. And this is what we could achieve for this patient at 1 year. This is the barium, where you can see that the barium is very nicely going without going into the laryngeal space, and this is called as functional swallow. So we could achieve a true organ and function preservation in this patient of CA larynx. So should we do DO-IMRT for all patients? It may not be possible to spare DARS in all patients. So patients who are for radical intent CTRT, who have N0 nodes or very small nodes up to N2 may be considered. Volume of PTV should be also small, and we have seen that when the volume is less than 250 cc, then we can spare the DARS, while with larger PTVs, we cannot spare the DARS. With laryngeal and hypopharyngeal primaries, we can spare the DARS much easily as compared to the oropharyngeal cancers. So this is one study wherein they have tried to see what are the predictors of dysphagia, and what they found was that chemotherapy and induction chemotherapy and advanced stage, those patients who receive induction chemotherapy have higher risk of dysphagia and aspiration, and T3, T4 tumors have higher risk. They also studied doses to the each and every muscle, not only DAS but other swallowing muscles, and they found that many of the muscles, the doses to many of the muscles have significant impact on the swallowing function. And therefore now in future we may be coming up with other muscles also. And in that context, there is a study which was published last year, wherein they have defined other organs of risk units, and these are called as functional swallowing units. These are based on the physiology of swallowing, and three essential steps of these are hyolaryngeal elevation, tongue-based retraction, and tongue motion. So the muscles which are involved in these are considered as organs at risk, and these are some of the examples. So functional swallowing units which are involved in hyolaryngeal elevation, and here you can see the muscles which are involved in floor of mouth muscles which are involved in swallowing, and also the pharyngeal muscles which are involved in hyolaryngeal elevation. And then these are the muscles which are involved in tongue-based retraction and tongue motion. And in future, we may be contouring all of those. And in fact, they have given guidelines for contouring all of these muscles, and they have given all the borders of this, and also given an atlas of how to contour each of these structures. So Possibly in future, we will be contouring each of the muscle which is involved in the swallowing, and we will be trying to spare each of these individual muscle to give functional swallow to most of our patients. So coming to the end part, and apart from external RT, we know that brachytherapy is one of the techniques, and as many of you may be aware, I am quite fond of brachytherapy. So the question comes whether brachytherapy can be used to spare DAS. We know that brachytherapy has a rapid fall-off of the dose. It results in good local controls, comparable organ functional outcomes, and also complication rates. So whether this can be used for sparing DAS. And we have also seen these kind of dose distribution where we know that there is a low dose spillage with external RT and very highly conformal dose distribution with brachytherapy. So there has been a study in this regard done by Levendak et al., and they studied 81 patients with oropharyngeal cancers. Majority of them were treated with 3D-CRT or IMRT, and almost half of them received brachytherapy. They calculated doses to the muscle and correlated that with the dysphagia-related quality of life. And this is the probability of dysphagia, and this is the dose. So this is the dose. So higher the dose, the more is the probability of dysphagia. And what they found was that after 55 gray, there was a steep gradient of plus or minus 19% per 10 gray. And brachytherapy was the important factor which reduce dysphagia. So these are the doses, and these are the probability of late dysphagia. And these are the blue are the patients who have treated with brachytherapy. So patients who had been treated with brachytherapy has much less dysphagia as compared to those who had not received brachytherapy. So in fact, brachytherapy can be used to reduce dysphagia and aspiration in patients with head and neck cancer. So to summarize, dysphagia and aspiration is a major cause of concern post CTRT, and there is a need for proper identification and contouring of DAS structures. Sparing of DAS is now feasible with IMRT, IGRT technique. And for oropharyngeal cancers, we have seen that the bulk of the DAS structures lies in that area, and it may be difficult to spare DARs, while for laryngeal and hypopharyngeal primaries, it is much easier to spare DAS as compared to that of oropharyngeal primaries. Brachytherapy can also be used, and it is an external modality to spare DAR structures. And we know we really need good studies with long-term endpoint to evaluate this issue of dysphagia and aspiration. Lastly, I would like to thank my students, Adnan Kalkatawala and Abhishek Singhal, who have really worked hard as a part of their research work and as a part of their thesis for this particular subject. And they have done a very good contribution for this DAS optimized radiotherapy in our center. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.